just right now raising money for Hamas, like he used to be doing right here in the United States. Al-Qaeda didn't come from Afghanistan. Al-Qaeda came from here. The concept. The observant Muslim base, who AMJA is appealing to go join forces with the Apples and destabilize the country of America. And this abstract concept has a face. And so I'm going to show you the face. I should say faces. Have you seen that before? Since we're moving fast, I'm not going to have a lot of time to analyze it, but they do say that one picture is worth 1,000 words, right? I think you'd come up with more than 1,000 words for this one. Let's just take it at face value. Just suffice it to know, that says Al-Ikhwan, that's the brethren. Al-Islamin, Moon, that's the brethren of Islam. This is the icon of the Muslim Brotherhood. The group that Clapper, James Clapper, the DNI chief, said was a peaceful organization with no global agenda and mostly non-political. Remember when he said that? Do you think he was right?
I think he's an idiot. Yeah.
Well, worse than an idiot. Way times worse than an idiot. Now, you guys look at this. This is the Muslim Brotherhood. This is the fatwa that they issued from their home base in Egypt, December 6th, the same day that President Trump designated Jerusalem. They issued a fatwa calling for war against the United States. Why in the world are these people still operating right out in the open public arena? Just take them at face value. And we mentioned Miss Linda, and here she is at that event I was telling you about at the Hart Building in Washington, D.C. with Miss Susan Sarandon right there. That's Linda Sarsar. Pleasantly satisfied with the handiwork. She has a very content-looking face, doesn't she?
Yeah.
Why? She's in a low-risk position. Her entire global community is backing her up. Go, 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 backing her up like a football team with cheerleaders in the stadium. No wonder she looks so serene and content. And then this is another face. That was one face. This is Dawood Walid. You guys know him? He's executive director of CARE Michigan, who declared on the 14th of April that Muslims in Michigan are already practicing Sharia law. He just came right out and said it. He supports Patrick Kolbeck. Sorry. He supports Syed Al-Fawad.
Abdul.
That was a test. That was a test. That was a trick question.
I think I better have another drink. And then here's what he said. Yes, there has been Sharia practice for the last century. By the way, you know where the first mosque in America is?
Maine?
No, Dearborn. Yeah, 1924. You know how many there were in America in 9/11? 1,100. And this, by the way, is according to CARE, not some Islamophobe. Now how many are there today? According to CARE, 3,200. So if we're such an Islamic phobic country, as we keep hearing, how is it that we have 3 times as many mosques in America now than we did at 9/11? Ask them that sometime, if you ever get a chance. And here's the dialogue, you know, in Twitter between Dawood and Patrick Kolbeck, where he likes to use these inflammatory terms like incorrectly framed by Republicans to score cheap political points. Michigan Muslims need to better explain what Sharia really is and not be apologetic. You guys are coming from denial, which is the first stage of this process, to outright normalization. But in order to normalize anything, what do you have to do? You have to marginalize the people that oppose it. Because the marginalization of the implementation or the opposition of the implementation of Sharia is the word fitna that we talked about earlier, which is a capital offense. Because according to the Quran, you are authorized to either slaughter or violently dispossess anybody that causes fitna. These verbs occur 4 times more frequently in the Quran than the verb jihad. yet we've virtually never heard of any of them. They're like peanut butter and jelly. You always find them together on a slice of bread. The slice of bread is the fitna, the peanut butter and the jelly is the petal and the paraj, these two violent verbs. How are we doing on time?
8 minutes.
Okay, here's your one picture worth 1,000 more words. We know who Miss Sarsour is, right? And here's our candidate for governor of Michigan, Democratic ticket. I'll go all side. This is when he was endorsed at the ISNA conference last summer. ISNA is also Muslim Brotherhood, Islamic Society of North America, designated in the Holy Land Foundation trial as a co-conspirator to provide financial support to Hamas. So for 10 years now, we have known, irrefutably proven in federal court under the DOJ, that these groups are connected to Hamas. So why are we allowing these individuals to exert influence in either the social or the political, in this case political, or in the law enforcement arena? And we could talk all day about the lack of training within the law enforcement arena. Because everywhere you turn, these guys are already there. We saw it yesterday with the attack in Toronto. And sometime I could explain to that. I saw the clip of him shooting, and I knew within 5 seconds that he was a trained shooter because he was shooting 2 hands. Right? He's not an amateur like this. He was well trained. We'll go into that later. And they're spinning that whole story now as mental illness. And they do it over and over. This is the infamous quote that you may not hate Muslims, but Muslims hate you. Right in the middle or the front of the Michigan Press League or club or organization on the 10th of May. If Patrick Colbeck had said to him, you might say you love Americans, but I can tell you Americans hate you, what do you suppose would have happened? You think it would have looked good on his resume? Probably not. They banned people from Twitter for less than that, don't they? So where does this mysterious double standard come from, and why do we still keep submitting to it, which is what Islam means? Why are we allowing individuals to make these kind of statements and just let it go, like they're immune to any kind of criticism?
Ignorance.
This candidate for governor wants to be the middle finger to Donald Trump. I won't explain what that means for obvious reasons, however. Nonetheless, do you really want a chief executive who builds a campaign on undoing everything the president... I heard him on the radio about 3 days on your AM station, like 690, whatever it is. And he said that his goal to become governor was to undo everything that President Trump is and has done. Plain stated. Just like the apples. No walls, no borders, resist, not our president. Here's Colbeck accusing Al-Sayed of playing the race card in the governor debate. These are just little tidbits along the way, part of the history of what's happening here in the campaign. And then we have the woman I mentioned to you before, Miss Ocasio-Cortez, who's endorsed Al-Sayed. And what's the default? If you accept somebody's endorsement, then what does that mean? What does that imply? That you accept everything that they stand for. I already showed you that she stands for abolishing ICE, plus sanctuary cities, etc. And so she's endorsed him. Have you heard any of her interviews on the radio? Yeah. If I were him, I would not want her endorsing me. Okay, and here's what he runs on. It's very plain. Money out of politics, to me, that's really rich. Because I'll show you in a minute where his money is coming from. And I told you before that he supported sanctuary city or state. And again, that's a declarative statement. It should be based on fact. Well, here it is right here. He's a sanctuary promoter. That's unconstitutional. In normal times, he wouldn't even be allowed to advance into the candidacy definitely past primary, because his unconstitutional position. And where are all of our conservatives who should be able to eloquently and effectively challenge him in public and shut down his candidacy based simply on constitutional principles. You don't have to go into ethnicity or race or religion. Stick with the Constitution. But we are essentially constitutionally illiterate, aren't we?
Yes.
Yeah, we're deficient. We don't know, we're not fluent in the language of the Constitution. And here's his worrisome friends. This guy, Muhammad Ali Alahi, is a Shia imam that lives right over in Dearborn. And he's pro-Hezbollah and pro-Iran. So Abdul Assad is taking support from both the Sunni side and from the Shia side of the equation. Because they all have one thing in common. They want to open up the arena for them to practice Islam as described by Sharia law without that pesky constitution interfering, causing fitna within the community of Islam. Here's the money. These groups, you know about CARE, Muslim American Society, Muslim Public Affairs Council, and ISNA. These are the people who are supporting him. This is a nationwide campaign, friends. And this guy right here, Jukak Taib, do you know who he is? His father-in-law. And I was telling you about faces. Well, here are the faces. Nihad Awad, founder of CARE, former Hamas operative, all the way known all the way back to 1993. Dawood Walid, you saw him earlier. You recognize Mr. Jackson. And then here's the father-in-law over here. This is 2010. This is like a tree that matures and bears 1 apple the first year, 5 apples the next year, and 2 bushels the following year. This tree is maturing right in the landscape of your state, in broad daylight. So, any questions? Now, before we go to, do we want to just set it up for both of us to answer questions?
Sure.